Yes, and enjoying those this evening, enjoying the fact that we had Joe and Heidi joining us from Brain Fog at the Hive. Hayley, great to see that there's this safe space available for all generations.
Yeah, I love that fact. I think we're really missing that sense of community. So being able to have that intergenerational kind of place where people come and talk about things that we don't like to talk about, it's really bonding as well, isn't it? It's everything. It's a really, for me, it's just a lovely idea.
Yeah, and we were just talking there during the song break about because it was brought up in that first conversation. If you've just joined us and you missed it, you need to do yourself a favor and watch it back, either on Facebook, of YouTube, Twitter, or when the show finishes, you can catch up with the whole show. But it was brought up about, I think Hayley, you brought it up originally about the thoughts, and you were just kind of guided towards, oh, it must be that, when actually it wasn't. And Tammy, you picked up on that when we were just having our little reflection there as well.
Yes, I had a conversation earlier today, kind of knowing that I was coming on the show, and it just kind of like just naturally progressed from there. But when you can start the menopause symptoms, at the same time there can be a lot going on in your life in general. So regardless of menopause, it can be a really busy time. So whether it's bringing up, teenage children, working full time, cost of living, and when you take into consideration that, 1 in 3 of us are going to become carers at some point, that kind of like mid-40s is a really busy time, regardless of hormones. So, I just wonder if you did present yourself to the doctor and said, I've got a really busy family life, I'm working full time, cost of living, teenage children. Would a doctor perhaps think that it's more stress related than it is menopause, or vice versa? And I haven't got the answer. It's just made me reflect on it.
Yeah, it's something to be aware of if you are of an age and you're thinking, oh, actually, is it just overwhelm of life coming together on top of what might already be existing? So it's definitely something to be aware of, and something that they might even talk about at Brain Fog once a month. Their next one is on 8th of April at the Hive on the Garth and Gossett Road in Haverfordwest, where you'll meet Joe, Heidi, and there was Maria in the comments there as well, who they said always provides the humour. And you never know, you might even bump into one of us two there as well in the future. Up next, though, national days. We love them and we loathe them. I don't like the word hate in equal measure. Hayley, you've brought this to the table. Give us a bit of an introduction as to why you want to bring this up today.
Okay, so I have a real dislike of international days. I think they have their place, but so let me start with the question then. Would we celebrate if we didn't have an international day? So mental health, whether it's International Women's Day, whether it's Mother's Day, would we actually be celebrating those things if we didn't have a day? Now, if the answer is yes, then why don't you do it the rest of the year?
Oh, it sounds like a simple question, but my theory is that people rely on that national day to be able to completely forget about it. And when you first brought this question to our attention, I was like, oh yeah, because the stigma attached, World Mental Health Day. And then we were just talking there and you've just said Mother's Day. Would I celebrate my mother or my mothering figure in my life if there wasn't a deliberate day to go and get her a bunch of flowers, when I could do that at any point? And you've opened up that can of worms with me now, thinking, well, am I thinking about all of this, or is it just too much? Tammy, what are your beginning thoughts on this?
Oh, it's a difficult one because I'm like Hayley, where it comes to those national days or awareness weeks, where it just it's thrust in front of you, it brings you to the forefront, and it does so many good things because perhaps we do need that nudge, we do need that little reminder. But when you're saying it, I just went to say Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And we just marketing, supermarkets, there's a lot of money to be made on national days as well. So should you be showing the person that you care for, that or love, or you're fond, whatever, that you care about them just on that one day, or should you, like Tom, and when it comes to Mother's Day, a mother figure, should it happen just spontaneously at any time of the year? And I'd say yes. It should happen at any time. It shouldn't just be on a certain day.
Mm.
So have we become complacent then when it comes to having international days or things like Mother's Day or Valentine's Day or whatever day it is? Have we become so complacent that that day is coming up that we will celebrate it then,
Yes.
that we don't really do as much as we could in between?
Yes, is what is my gut instinct, and I say that because, just like thinking back years and years ago, the amount of money you'd spend on Mother's Day, Father's Day, when you were younger to where you are now, I imagine there's a real big increase, a stark contrast, as opposed to just valuing that person or just spending time with that person, to kind of just these these gestures of money, really.
Mm. And gestures are dangerous, particularly in this time at the moment where the pound isn't going as far as it used to on the shops. And all of a sudden, there's this pressure, particularly on the days like Mothering Sunday, like your Valentine's, Father's Day, whatever it might be. There's pressure now to dig deep into your pockets. And now all of a sudden, we're causing extra strain and tension on what should be a joyous occasion and what could be enjoyed all year round.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it?
I've
What
oh,
pleasure, sorry,
no, it's
what
me. Go on.
what pleasure could we be having by not necessarily, it's not about celebrating necessarily, because that's a big word, isn't it? But at least appreciating and valuing. I think, Tam, you just used that word now, and I like that word. Valuing those things and those people that are dear to us. Or are we just going to wait for that day to come?
It's a convenient excuse to not, and to be like, well, I'll treat them in a couple of weeks or whatever it might be, and you can hold off and hold off and hold off, when actually, if you're in a position to do something nice and inexpensive, then you could just celebrate who's around us anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first asked the question, it really excited me. But then after sort of thinking about it, we've had a bit of time to think about it. One of the things that really caught my attention is that, particularly with mental health, are those days escalating the stigma? Because if people are not, as I said, celebrating is a big word. If people are not kind of aware or doing anything about it in between mental health days, is it making the stigma worse? Because for me, when I work with people, I often say, like when I do my mental health in sports for children, I often say to the coaches, if you've had an email and a child knows that there's training of mental health and you've opted not to go on that training, that child is going to feel, or that person who maybe is working alongside you is going to feel like you don't value mental health. So is this the same thing, that if you're only doing it because it's an international day, and we have 3, I think, over the year, or 5 with the children's one over the year for mental health, what's happening to the stigma then for somebody who's struggling, and you only want to think about mental health on those international days?
And you're not actually reflecting those values all year round, even though you're still coming into contact, statistically speaking, with someone who might have a poorer mental health than you anyway. And what are you doing to continually educate yourself? Or are you just waiting to, I went to that seminar on World Mental Health Day, tick box for another year?
Yeah.
I suppose on the flip side of that, you've got people who might not like to be defined by their condition, and all of a sudden they're being reminded that if you display these symptoms, you've got mental health and you need a nice warm hug on World Mental Health Day. And all of a sudden you're now entrenching a behavior, depending on the type of diagnosis you have. Mental health is the example that we're working on at the moment. But all of a sudden, we're entrenching a belief and a system that you're working in. It's like, well, I can't do that because this day says that I'm different.
Yeah. And, there's a good stuff, isn't there? Because it does raise awareness. It does get people talking about it because we don't often talk about it. But there is one day in the year, it falls on my birthday, that I do celebrate every day. Do you know what that day is?
Tell me, what's your guess?
God, I don't want to guess.
So it falls on my birthday, and it is World Chocolate Day.
Oh.
So I celebrate that every day.
That's one that we're not going to forget in a hurry. But that's another thing, is that there's a World Chocolate Day when you can't get away from it. You walk into any shop and there's going to be some form of confectionery. Why does it need that day when actually it's already very much in the public sphere?
So there's lots of different ways to look at international days and world days. But my kind of, why are we waiting when we could be doing it more regular every day, however you want to put that? But I think it's an interesting topic.
Have you got a response there, Tammy?
Oh, I completely agree with Hayley. We don't, we shouldn't just adhere to national days because they are national days. We should be doing it all the time. They've got a place. So I'm not going to kind of just say we need to get rid of them. They do have a place because they do serve as that reminder. And it does bring it back to people's, the forefront of their minds. But there are things that we should be doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So yeah, there's a place for them, but I do agree with Hayley that we don't need them, and there's so many of them. There's one every day.
Literally, there's multiple every day because I update our social calendar here at Pure West Radio, and there's always something that we can be talking about. Today was Dog Theft Awareness Day, and another one that Gina mentioned this morning. There is literally something for everyone, and I suppose we could celebrate all of these days, continue all year round. And if you're someone who's got an affinity towards a certain type of day or animal or creed or whatever it might be, then of course you're going to celebrate that one more than, I don't know, World Vegan Day if you love meat barbecues and stuff like that. Like, I'm sure that that's a thing. So of course, in moderation and in balance compared to your lifestyle choices. But then your lifestyle choices these days can remind you that, oh, actually, if you eat too much of that, then maybe that's bad on your cholesterol and you might want to check that out as well. And this is why the awareness days, I think they do have a place, as you just mentioned. But I'm wondering if they've come about because life in general, for certainly in the circle of people that I keep, it's busy, it's overwhelming. Everything is happening at 1,000 miles an hour in this technology, in this digital age where everything's on our phone. There's people watching us right now on a device that's no bigger than their hand. And they are taking time to do this whilst also doing everything else. And you know what? Mothering Sunday, you look at your calendar, you see the advertising. Yes, it's a marketing thing as well. And all of a sudden it was like, gosh, when was the last time I sat down and had a 20-minute conversation with the mother figure in my life? And it does allow for those checkpoints, for you to actually get off those train tracks and be like, whoa, I'm going to sit on this bench now with my mum and mothering figure and be like, yeah, I've got you some flowers because I don't feel like I've been appreciating you enough. Yes, I know it's on a commercial basis, but it's just been so overwhelming. Hayley, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, do you know, that's a really nice thought, though, that, it does remind you to take that time out with them. And that's what we're talking about, the good side of the international days and the different days. But I wonder if, you're talking about being really busy, and we're all really busy at the moment. We're all really stressed with everything that's going on in the world. But what is the remedy, do you think? I wanted to say being a kind human being, but I just think, is the remedy just in being human and connecting with people and just remembering to be kind to yourself and to everybody around you? Is that the remedy, maybe?
I like that. And I like that it's because it is kind to yourself, because all those pressures, and you've got these days, I mentioned that earlier, is like entrenching that feeling. And you've got these national days, and of course we're talking about the mothering figure in our lives. We're very much skirting away from the issue that some people have lost their mothers. They don't have them. So all of a sudden, we've talked about mental health, we're talking about Mothering Sunday, now the two have collided. And actually, it's not a nice checkpoint. It's actually a bit of a spiral for some people as well. And it's like, the balance is so difficult. And going back to your being human, being kind to yourself, and reflecting back on brain fog, being able to have conversations. It was like, yes, I'm aware that this like Sunday was Mothering Sunday. Do you mind if I talk to you about it? And actually allowing a bit of time to reciprocate that conversation with an actual listening ear. Tammy, I don't think that there is a perfect answer, but do you think that we're getting close?
Oh, yes, I think so. I haven't got the right formula. I don't know what the formula is. And for every National Awareness Day, there's going to be that positive and negative that we've spoken about, and that there is that time and place. And in a lot of national days, we do, like you say, mental health just kind of bolts on, because it just does. And a classic example that's come to my mind is just the recent World Book Day. And I'm on my high horse there, but when we, in all playfulness, it can leave families divided over the stress and the cost of dressing up, as opposed to those kind of like homemade outfits that you might have made years ago. And it's supposed to be that celebration of reading, and it's just again moved to another level. So it's really complex. It's multi-layered. And I think for every Awareness Day, there will always be that mental health element to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the World Book Day, I would advise any parent to get a book, at least one book, where the children just wear normal clothes. So my children wore football kits or rugby kits to school every World Book Day. Easy, no dressing up. But yeah, I think you're right. There's pressure upon pressure, isn't there? Whether it's Mother's Day, because we get them flowers, get them this, and it gets bigger and bigger every year. But for me, it's about just coming back to how community, the thing with that Heidi and Joe were talking about earlier, is that community, that sense of community and being together. Would we need as many of these days if we had that sense of community we used to have? I'm full of questions tonight. I know.
I
like
love
a
it.
question.
It's thought-provoking, and if we can get one or two people thinking about it and posing that question to their friends and neighbours, you never know, society might take a bit of a shift and be like, oh, actually, Mothering Sunday this next Sunday, is it? Oh, well, we went out and celebrated a couple of weeks ago, because that's how open we are as a family. For those that might be feeling overwhelmed by the questions, what can we do when these national days come up, and they might be a trigger point, they might be something that's unaffordable, they might just be entrenching your beliefs, all of these themes that we've talked about this evening. Tammy, where's a good starting point to try and get perspective on a national day? And let's be honest, it's probably some arbitrary date that's been plucked out of thin air, apart from if it's like Nelson Mandela Day, which is linked to something that he did. What can we do to get that perspective and maybe take that step away from all of the pressure?
To remind ourselves to be in the here and now, and not to kind of be swept away with a national day, because we can celebrate at any time of the year. Find like-minded people. We've spoken about this so many times. Your network, whether it is parents at school, whether it's friends, family, and again, it's just resisting that pressure. And I think there is going to be a gradual change, a gradual shift, because there has to be, where you say enough's enough. We spoke about, and I really quickly, we talk about Christmas and just how instead of making memories, it's all been about the expense and how we should just strip it back. I think the more that we talk about national days and just kind of taking that step back, being reflective and thinking we don't need to go above and beyond. We can enjoy reading, for example, every day. We don't have to just celebrate it just that one day a week, one day of the year, sorry. I just think it's about just being mindful.
Yeah. And Hayley, if someone's like, yeah, I'm going to do things when I want to do them, and then the day rolls round and all of a sudden there's judgment. What, you mean you didn't do that on that day? Oh, who are you? What can we do about trying to absorb other people's perspectives and thoughts and opinions onto how we should live our lives?
But it's recognising that it is just an opinion, and a national day is just a national day. It's not anything that we have to get involved in. So being able to say, actually, I don't agree with that. It is hard because society is quite judgmental if you're not doing what everybody else is doing. But actually, the sense of pride you get from yourself and that sense of confidence of saying, actually, this isn't for me. You know, we've got all this, what is it, dry January, all these things that happen. I don't drink anyway. So I haven't drunk for 7 years this year, I think it is. So dry January comes around, but then you've got people who do drink and then feel guilty because dry January comes around. So it's about choosing to opt out and being confident in that it's okay to opt out.
Yeah, that we're not compelled to do any of it, even if our friends and neighbours, and it's peer pressure from the school playground all over again, but in adults, and you feel like, oh well, but perhaps I should do that. Take stock on your values, which we've talked about lots on Healthy Minds, so you can go back and listen to previous shows where we've delved deep into values, particularly what month are we in? March now. The December and January would be a great starting point for you there about, right, who am I? Where am I aiming for? And you could use National Day as a checkpoint, or you could not. It's entirely up to you. I do like the checkpoint though, personally speaking. What are your thoughts? If you're listening to this now and you're thinking, yeah, that's a very valid point. Would I do it? Would I celebrate the different national days? Would you look at mental health? Would you evaluate? There's things in professional circles, your continual professional development. Would you have continual personal development, taking stock of all of these national days and what they mean? Tammy was talking to us about Young Carers Action Day the other day. Are you even aware of young carers, or do you just assume that every single child you see in a uniform is a child that goes and plays? They've got computer games, they've got friends, they've got best friends. And are you considering that some of those children are actually going home and literally making dinner for their parents because the parents physically can't do it? And it is good to open our awareness to outside of our sphere, particularly if you've got no reason or impetus to do so from the beginning. So in that message, there's a bit of a balance to be struck. So it'd be very interesting to get your thoughts. By all means, drop us a comment on Facebook. You can WhatsApp us 0437 764455 on the email studio@purewestradio.com and on the PWR app. It's between 10:15 and 10:20. Great question, Hayley. I don't think that we've actually definitively got an answer. Would you celebrate a national day if it wasn't a national day? It depends on the day.
I like the way you think.
When we come back, because we are going to come back, it's dark outside at the moment, but Tammy, in a couple of weeks' time, that could all be changing, and it goes back to darkness for the breakfast show crew like myself for a couple of weeks. The clocks go back. We get lovely sunny evenings, all the postcards and pictures of wonderful golden sunsets, enjoying time watching the sunset on the horizon. We're blessed with beautiful beaches. Surely you can only be happy when that happens.
Well, I'm going to challenge it because we have seasonal affective disorder. It is often known as the winter depression, but I would challenge it and say that it can be even more severe come the summertime, comes, when the clocks go forward.
If you're listening and you think that you find a change in your personality and your moods when the summer comes, please get in touch. We'll treat it with confidence. If you email studio@purewestradio.com, we'll take on board what you're saying. We don't have to mention any names, but if this impacts you, then we would love to hear from you and get your insight. We're going to take a moment. We've got Becky Hill and Sunny Federa with Never Be Alone heading your way. And when we come back, we'll be looking at seasonal affective disorder, the winter depression, if you will, as the spring and the summer come. More on that in just a moment.
We've been stuck in the silence.